In a fairly recent video, I named Final Fantasy X my 5th favourite Final Fantasy game ever, so imagine my delight when Final Fantasy X and X-2 HD were announced for the Switch. Well, funnily enough, I wasn't actually that excited for Final Fantasy X. I've finished it 3 times already, and it wasn't so long ago that I finished it on the Vita. What I was looking forward to playing was Final Fantasy X-2. I hadn't played it since it was first launched on the PS2, and I wasn't even 100% certain that I'd finished it back then. I wanted to finish X-2 before doing this video, and that's mostly what I'll be focusing on. X is still pretty fresh in my mind, but I did play through a sizable chunk just to make sure performance wasn't drastically different from my experience with X-2. So how does the Switch handle X and X-2? And is it worth picking up? Let's find out. So I did say I'd be mainly focusing on X-2. X is a lot more straightforward, it's more of a traditional Final Fantasy RPG, and if you played 6, 7, 8 or 9, you should know pretty well what you're getting. X-2 on the other hand has a different structure and a different feel. It's not exactly unique among JRPGs, funnily enough it kind of feels like a lot of the direct sequel JRPGs in this style, like Tales of Xillia 2 for example. The game is split into chapters and gives you the freedom to explore all the zones and areas in the game. Each area will have either a side mission, a main mission, or no mission attached to it, and this changes with each chapter. To progress the story, you of course have to complete the main missions in each chapter, and unlike Xillia 2, the side missions in Final Fantasy X-2 are optional. The world, textures, and a lot of the character models in X-2 are reused from X, and for the most part they look great even today, at least knowing that they were originally made for the PS2 anyway. The other thing X-2 inherited from X though is the occasionally uncooperative camera. Both games have a static camera which shifts to new fixed points as you move through the world. The issue is that sometimes you'll be walking forward and reach a spot where the camera angle shifts to where you are now walking in another direction if you continue to hold forward. In other words, you'll be walking the right way and then suddenly you're walking backwards because the camera perspective changed. Overall, it's not a big deal, there aren't too many situations where this makes navigating the world annoying, and the fixed camera angles are used to hide treasure chests and puzzles. It's actually a feature I generally like, but you can see how much better it can be done in a game like World of Final Fantasy. Combat in X is what some consider the best traditional turn-based system out there. It is a true turn-based system and not a variation like ATB. You can switch party members in battle and influence the turn order in a bunch of different ways. I'm simplifying it a bit, but basically if you like turn-based systems, you're going to like the one in X. X-2 on the other hand has an ATB system. I consider it the precursor to Final Fantasy XIII's battle system. An ATB bar fills up, you choose an action, and the characters move around on the field automatically. Hitting an enemy from behind or from the side can increase damage, but basically you just have to get lucky. The other main quirks of the X-2 system are garment grids and dress spheres. You can change a character's dress sphere in battle, which is essentially like changing their class. So you could start off with Riku as a thief to steal some items, then switch her to a warrior or a white mage to get extra damage in or be the main healer, for example. Garment grids are what store dress spheres and come in a variety of configurations that can offer bonuses. Switching to all available dress spheres on a garment grid in a single battle unlocks a special garment grid that drastically changes the character. Your other 2 party members retreat and the remaining character is given 3 separate turns of their own. Who's that waifu? It's Yuna! The story in X is one of the strongest in the series. It's got a brilliant cast of characters and the voice work is top notch. When I was younger I didn't appreciate the narrative all that much, but when I got a little older and a little wiser, I truly fell in love with it all. Though I still think it has a relatively slow start once you get past the introduction. X-2 on the other hand probably isn't going to win many awards on the story front. I enjoyed it, it's not bad by any means, but it certainly feels a little lacking next to X. The great thing though is that it mostly retains that same brilliant cast of characters. Of course the focus is shifted toward Yuna, Riku and the newcomer Pain as it's their story you're experiencing in X-2, but there are plenty of appearances from the other Final Fantasy X characters that get woven into the story. X-2 is a true sequel, you are going to want to play or be familiar with X before playing it. Both games will set you back 40 to 50 hours each and could easily last 100 hours for completionists. Also included is an additional cutscene for Final Fantasy X and an extra dungeon for Final Fantasy X-2 which can be accessed from the game selection menu. And the final addition is a credit sequence with some cool narration from the English voice cast. As far as the performance on the Switch, it's pretty much flawless. The game is locked to 30 FPS on every platform because it's one of the many games back in the day that had the game's fundamental systems programmed into the frame rate. Increasing it would be like pressing fast forward. The Switch version, whether docked or handheld, seems to have a rock solid frame rate. I can't say I encountered any noticeable slowdown at any point during my playthrough. It looks great too. Obviously it's not in 4K, but the game looks sharp and doesn't appear to have a major resolution downgrade. A review posted somewhere said it was 675p, but I just don't buy that. At 675p it would look noticeably blurry, but that was not my experience at all. The graphics themselves appear to be identical to that of the other versions, with the minor resolution downgrade doing the work to allow a steady frame rate. The game does look better than I remember it on the Vita. Now, if you have been playing the recent ports of Final Fantasy VII and 9, you might notice that they have a few additional features that just haven't been added to the 10 and 10.2 collection on consoles. 7 and 9 both have a bunch of options and toggles that allow you to speed up the game or turn off random encounters. Back when this collection launched on the PS3 and the Vita, the focus was on upgrading the graphics and the audio, and those other additional features in 7 and 9 have just never been added to any of the console versions of the 10 and 10.2 HD remaster. I don't think they're necessary at all, but options are always nice. Also, as far as crashes go, I had none, and I did a little searching and haven't been able to find many people experiencing crashes either. The few I did find mentioned it was a one-off event. The technical aspect of this port appears to be just as solid as the rest of it. So is the Final Fantasy X and X-2 HD remaster on Switch worth it? Undoubtedly, yes. Of course, if you've bought it 3 or 4 times on different platforms already and you have no interest in playing it again, there is nothing new here to consider. But if you've never played X or X-2 or just haven't played them since the PS2 or PS3, it's definitely worth thinking about.